unbelievable. Alex Eala's fans have done it again. The stadium is completely sold out, and Cincinnati organizers have been forced to make a stunning court change just to accommodate the massive crowd. The 21-year-old Filipina hasn't even played her first match yet, and the Lindner Family Tennis Center is already packed with fans eager to see her. Nobody expected the excitement to reach this level so quickly. The same phenomenon that forced Toronto to move Eala to a much larger court because the original 2,800-seat venue couldn't handle the demand has now taken over Ohio. The Filipino community has once again turned out in huge numbers, and tournament organizers are scrambling to keep up with the unprecedented interest surrounding one of the fastest rising stars in women's tennis. The moment Alex Eala's name appeared on the Cincinnati Open entry list, interest surrounding the tournament exploded. Ticket demand surged, and before organizers could fully understand what was happening, seats were disappearing at an incredible rate. Eala had not even played a single point, yet her presence was already having a major impact on attendance. Now ranked number 20 in the world, Eala entered the Cincinnati Open as the number 17 seed, marking the highest seeding of her career at a WTA 1000 event. Just a year ago, she would have needed a wild card or would have been forced to battle through qualifying simply to reach the main draw. Now, she had earned a first-round bye, a privilege generally reserved for the sport's elite players. As Eala herself has said, she has come a long way, but she knows there is still much farther to go. The transformation has been remarkable. Not long ago, Eala was fighting through qualifying rounds and relying on wild cards to get opportunities against the biggest names in the sport. Now she arrives at major tournaments as a legitimate top 20 player, and her growing popularity is creating another phenomenon entirely. Fans aren't simply watching her matches. They are traveling long distances, buying expensive tickets, organizing reunions, and turning tournament grounds into celebrations of Filipino pride. Toronto provided one of the clearest examples when organizers moved Eala to center court after realizing the original venue could not handle the demand. Cincinnati was now experiencing the same Eala effect. The Cincinnati Open, running from August 13th through August 23rd at the Lindner Family Tennis Center in Mason, Ohio, has already undergone a massive transformation in recent years. A $260 million renovation completed in 2025 expanded the campus to more than 40 acres, and the tournament attracted more than 285,000 fans that year. Tournament director Bob Moran had indicated that the 2026 event was on pace to comfortably surpass 300,000 attendees. But even those huge numbers did not prepare organizers for what would happen when Alex Eala arrived. Her popularity was creating a problem that every tournament would love to have. There simply weren't enough seats to satisfy everyone who wanted to see her play. The Filipino community had once again shown exactly what its support could do. Fans showed up in huge numbers, filled available seats, and transformed another tennis tournament into something much bigger than a sporting event. Eala had already experienced this atmosphere in Washington, where she captured the first WTA singles title of her career and became the first Filipino player to win a WTA Tour singles title. Her run included victories over major names such as Leylah Fernandez, Alina Svitolina, and Naomi Osaka before she came from a set down to defeat top seed Jessica Pegula in the final. That breakthrough pushed Eala into the world's top 20 for the first time, reaching a career-high ranking of number 20. Suddenly, the young Filipina who had once been fighting for entry into tournaments was becoming one of the biggest attractions on the women's tour. And Cincinnati was now witnessing that transformation firsthand. Fans weren't simply buying tickets. They were going to extraordinary lengths to be there for Eala. Some were planning college reunions around her matches. Others were making long drives from Toronto and other cities just for the opportunity to watch their favorite player live. The fact that the stadium had already sold out before Eala even played a single point showed just how powerful the demand had become. Eala herself appeared genuinely amazed by the support, saying that it was an incredible experience to see the Filipino community showing up and enjoying tennis. She also expressed hope that the growing attention could help introduce more people to the sport and give the community something new and joyful to experience. The Cincinnati sellout became another major milestone in what was quickly becoming a remarkable run of fan support. Washington had witnessed it, Toronto had witnessed it, and now Cincinnati was experiencing the same phenomenon. The court change that followed was more than just a logistical decision. It was a clear sign that the Eala Effect had become impossible to ignore. When a tournament has to reconsider its original court assignment because thousands more people want to watch one player than the venue can accommodate, that player has become more than just another name on the draw sheet. The problem was simple. The smaller grandstand court held around 2,800 spectators, but the demand surrounding Eala was reportedly far greater than that. Toronto tournament director Carl Hale had already explained the dilemma just days earlier, pointing out that the available court simply could not handle the number of fans Eala was attracting. Now Cincinnati was facing a remarkably similar situation. Organizers had to rethink their plans and move Eala to a larger stadium so more fans could have the chance to watch her play. It was the same kind of adjustment that had shocked tournament officials in Toronto, where Eala's matches became some of the most heavily attended sessions of the event. And that is what makes this story so extraordinary. Alex Eala hasn't needed a Grand Slam title or years at the top of the rankings to create this kind of atmosphere. At just 21 years old, she has built a connection with Filipino fans that stretches far beyond the tennis court. Every tournament she enters now carries a different level of excitement because fans know they are watching a player who represents something much bigger than herself. Cincinnati organizers may have expected a rising top 20 player to attract attention, but they clearly weren't prepared for thousands of fans to turn her arrival into an event of its own. The matches haven't even started yet, and already Alex Eala has changed the atmosphere inside Cincinnati. The biggest question now is whether what happens on the court can be just as spectacular as what her fans have already created in the stands. In Toronto, Filipino flags filled entire sections of the stadium, and a superfan dressed as a dinosaur even went viral. Jessica Pegula later admitted that she didn't exactly enjoy playing the Washington final because it felt like Eala was competing on home soil. Belinda Bencic went even further, comparing the atmosphere in Toronto to what it was like playing Serena Williams. Now Cincinnati was experiencing that same phenomenon. The ticketing system was reportedly overwhelmed before 6 a.m., forcing organizers to scramble for solutions before 9 a.m. as the unexpected demand continued pouring in. Tournament director Bob Moran, a man who had witnessed legends such as Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Serena Williams at the Lindner Family Tennis Center, was now seeing something completely different unfold around a 21-year-old Filipina. The Filipino community had done what it does best. They showed up. They filled the seats, raised the flags, and transformed another tennis tournament into a celebration of identity and pride. The stunning court change was more than a simple scheduling adjustment. It was proof that the Eala Effect was real and that it was getting stronger with every tournament. Just months earlier, Eala had been ranked outside the world's top 50. Now, she wasn't simply another rising player on the WTA Tour. She was becoming a genuine attraction, a player whose box office appeal seemed increasingly independent of her opponent, the time of day, or even the stage of the tournament. Rennie Stubbs, the former doubles world number one and longtime tennis coach, explained why Eala's growing popularity was creating such a unique challenge for opponents. She pointed out that even experienced players were beginning to realize that they might be walking into an atmosphere unlike anything they had experienced before, with the possible exception of Serena Williams playing in New York. That meant facing Alex Eala wasn't just about preparing for her left-handed game, her movement, or her shot making. Players also had to prepare mentally for the roar that would follow her around the court. And that is why the court change mattered. Cincinnati wasn't simply trying to find enough seats. Organizers were acknowledging that Alex Eala had become something unusual in modern tennis. Her fans were creating an atmosphere powerful enough to influence tournament logistics. After investing around $260 million into the renovation of the Cincinnati facility, organizers were learning a lesson that sports has demonstrated countless times before. Sometimes the strongest force isn't the court, the prize money, or the ranking points. It's the people who show up. Eala herself has repeatedly expressed how grateful she is for the support. She has described representing the Philippines as an honor and said she is incredibly thankful for the love and recognition she has received. But the Cincinnati sellout wasn't simply about the number of tickets being purchased. It was about the extraordinary lengths fans were willing to go to support her. Stories coming out of the Lindner Family Tennis Center revealed just how deep that connection had become. One group of Filipino friends living in different parts of the United States reportedly planned an entire college reunion around a trip to see Alex Eala play. Think about that for a moment. These friends had different lives, lived in different states, and had to coordinate their schedules and travel plans, all for the chance to watch a 21-year-old Filipina compete in a second-round match at a WTA 1000 tournament in Ohio. Then there was another fan who had watched Eala in Toronto and decided to drive roughly 8 hours to Cincinnati just to see her again. 8 hours on the road. Not for a Grand Slam final. Not for a championship match. Simply for the opportunity to watch Eala compete once more. That kind of dedication tells you everything about the connection she has built with Filipino fans across North America. These supporters weren't treating her matches like ordinary sporting events. They were turning them into experiences worth rearranging their lives for. The timing made the story even more remarkable. Eala had just captured the first WTA Tour singles title of her career at the Mubadala City DC Open in Washington. She had then reached the round of 16 at the National Bank Open in Toronto. And now she was preparing to make her Cincinnati Open debut. Her breakthrough season had transformed her from a promising young player into one of the most recognizable new faces in women's tennis. And the Filipino community was making sure the entire tennis world noticed. Even though the Filipino community in Cincinnati itself is relatively small, the wider Ohio and surrounding region has a much larger Filipino-American population. When those fans had an opportunity to see Eala, they came out in force. Philippine flags appeared throughout the stadium. Fans wore custom shirts carrying messages like fight, believe, and represent. And throughout the venue, one chant kept echoing, "Let's go, Alex!" For Eala, the atmosphere was overwhelming but deeply meaningful. She explained that every city brings its own energy, but once she steps onto the court, her job remains the same. She said she was counting her blessings, taking the lessons from her recent tournaments, and hoping to use those experiences to become even better in Cincinnati and beyond. She also recognized the extraordinary commitment of the people traveling to watch her. Eala said it was an amazing experience to see the Filipino community showing up, enjoying tennis, and hopefully helping the sport grow while giving fans something new and joyful to experience. Then she spoke directly to her supporters in Tagalog, making the moment even more personal. For the fans who had traveled hundreds or even thousands of miles, Eala wasn't simply another athlete to cheer for. She had become someone they had made a priority. They had rearranged schedules, planned trips driven across states, and organized reunions just to be there. That proved the Eala Effect wasn't simply about filling seats. It was about inspiring genuine devotion. The journey from Toronto to Cincinnati was beginning to look like the story of a much larger movement. A movement that was turning tennis matches into celebrations of Filipino pride. A movement that was bringing new fans into the sport. And a movement that was transforming a 21-year-old left-handed player from the Philippines into one of the biggest attractions on the women's tennis tour. After her Toronto run, Eala shared an emotional message on Instagram expressing how difficult it was to put the experience into words and how grateful she was for the love her supporters had shown her. She said she was feeling that love in ways she might only fully appreciate later, and described herself as incredibly lucky to experience something beyond what she had previously known. Her message carried a deeper meaning because Filipino fans understood exactly what she represented. Some supporters even compared the passion surrounding Eala to the devotion seen around Barangay Ginebra San Miguel, one of the most popular teams in the Philippine Basketball Association, famous for its intensely loyal fan base. The comparison was striking because it showed how quickly Eala was becoming more than just a successful tennis player. She was becoming a symbol, a source of pride, and for thousands of Filipino fans around the world, every time Alex Eala walks onto a tennis court, they feel like they are walking onto that court with her. Bang, that follows the team everywhere. And now Alex Eala has created her own version of that same phenomenon. The Eala Effect was never just a Toronto story. It had become a movement traveling from Washington to Toronto and now into Ohio, leaving sold-out crowds, packed stands, and stunned tournament organizers in its wake. In Washington, ticket demand reportedly jumped by 80% after Eala's matches were announced, and every match she played drew enormous crowds. Even when rain and lightning pushed the final to a Monday, fans still showed up and the stadium remained packed. Then came Toronto, where the 12,500-seat stadium repeatedly filled whenever Eala took the court. Filipino flags covered entire sections, chants echoed through the venue, and even a superfan dressed as a dinosaur became part of the viral spectacle. Now Cincinnati was seeing the same thing. The Filipino community in the Cincinnati area may be relatively small, but Ohio is home to thousands of Filipino Americans, and fans from across the region were willing to travel to support Eala. And when the opportunity came, they filled the stands. The scenes that had captured attention in Toronto were suddenly appearing inside the Lindner Family Tennis Center. Filipino flags were waving throughout the venue. Fans were wearing Eala shirts, and the chants of support were turning ordinary sessions into something that felt much bigger than tennis. Eala herself recognized what was happening. She said it was an amazing experience to see the Filipino community showing up, enjoying tennis, and hopefully helping grow the sport, while giving fans something new and joyful to experience. She has also repeatedly described representing the Philippines as an honor and expressed how grateful she is for the love and recognition coming from supporters around the world. That journey from Washington to Toronto and then Cincinnati proved something important. The Eala Effect was not a one-time burst of enthusiasm. It was becoming a repeatable phenomenon. A global Filipino diaspora of more than 10 million people had found a young sporting hero they could rally behind, and they were showing their support in ways the traditional tennis establishment had rarely seen. Rennie Stubbs, the former doubles world #1 and coach of Serena Williams, highlighted just how unusual the atmosphere had become. She suggested that even players with years of experience on tour were realizing they could be facing an environment unlike anything they had experienced before, perhaps comparable only to the atmosphere surrounding Serena Williams in New York. From Washington to Toronto to Cincinnati, the Eala Effect was becoming impossible to ignore. And that raises a much bigger question for tennis. What does this phenomenon mean for the future of the sport? The answer could be both exciting and challenging. Alex Eala is demonstrating that a modern tennis star can represent much more than rankings, titles, and prize money. She is showing how sport can become a celebration of identity, culture, community, and pride. Tournament directors are noticing. Players are noticing. Fans are noticing. And the numbers are becoming harder to dismiss. Washington saw a dramatic increase in ticket demand around her matches. Toronto repeatedly filled one of its largest stadiums. Cincinnati was now adjusting court assignments because the expected venue couldn't handle the demand. But the Eala Effect goes much deeper than ticket sales. Wherever Filipino fans gather to watch her, something remarkable happens. In cities across the tennis calendar, overseas Filipinos arrive carrying flags, signs, and shirts. They bring their families, their friends, and their phones ready to capture the moment. Practice courts can suddenly become crowded. Smaller courts can feel like center court. People who may have never met before recognize one another as fellow Filipinos and supporters of the same athlete. For a few hours, strangers become a community united by one player. That connection is rooted in something powerful, the Filipino diaspora and its sense of belonging. Millions of Filipinos live and work outside the Philippines while maintaining deep emotional and cultural connections to their homeland and to other Filipinos around the world. Alex Eala gives that identity a young, female, global face. She carries the Philippine flag, not just through her results, but through her words, her gestures, and the way she interacts with supporters. When she speaks to Filipino fans in their own language, the message goes both ways. The fans are telling her, "You are not alone," and she is answering, "I see you." That matters because many overseas Filipinos spend their everyday lives being defined by their jobs, immigration status, or life in another country. At an Eala match, they can stand together openly as Filipinos. They can wave their flag, chant her name, celebrate her victories, and feel connected to something larger than themselves. A tennis match becomes a temporary home away from home. That is why the atmosphere surrounding Eala can feel so different from an ordinary WTA event. The fans aren't just watching a player. They are celebrating a shared identity, and that is what makes Cincinnati particularly significant. The Lindner Family Tennis Center has undergone a massive transformation, backed by hundreds of millions of dollars in investment and a long-term vision to establish Cincinnati as one of the premier destinations in professional tennis. The tournament has invested in bigger facilities, improved infrastructure, and a world-class experience designed to compete with the biggest events on the calendar. But then Alex Eala arrived and demonstrated something no renovation can manufacture: passionate fans. You can build a bigger stadium. You can improve the courts. You can increase the prize money. You can attract the biggest names in tennis. But you cannot simply manufacture a community willing to drive 8 hours, organize reunions, buy tickets before a player even takes the court, and fill an entire stadium with flags and chants. That kind of connection has to be earned. And Alex Eala is earning it one tournament at a time. The Eala Effect isn't simply about filling stadiums. It's about building a legacy that could inspire the next generation of Filipino athletes to believe that they can compete on the biggest stages in the world. A legacy that could introduce thousands of new fans to tennis. And a legacy that could remind the entire sport that tennis doesn't belong to one country, one culture, or one traditional fan base. Tennis belongs to everyone. The Cincinnati sellout is only the latest chapter. The next major test will come at the US Open, followed by the rest of a rapidly expanding schedule and the biggest stages still ahead of her. Eala has already shown how far she can travel in a short period of time, but as she has said herself, she has come far and still is farther to go. The tennis world is watching. Filipino fans are roaring, and Alex Eala is only getting started. Oh, now, the question isn't whether the Eala Effect is real. The crowds have already answered that. The real question is whether the tennis establishment is ready for what comes next. Because if Washington, Toronto, and Cincinnati are any indication, Alex Eala's popularity isn't slowing down. It is spreading. And the next time she walks onto a court, organizers may have to prepare for more than just a tennis match. They may have to prepare for an event. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Eala Effect and the stunning changes her popularity has already forced at major tournaments, hit the like button, subscribe to Courtside Tennis, and let us know in the comments. Is the tennis world ready for the Eala Effect, or will the sport struggle to keep up with its own future?